Over on Jaguar Gator 8, a new college football video is out. In this video, we talk about a 2000 controversy involving VMI and the Southern Conference, and how VMI wanted to drop out of the conference because they stunk so much at football. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And join me tonight on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes. Link to play below. And now, on with our feature presentation. Oh man, this one's gonna hurt to make. This one's not gonna make me any friends, I'll tell you that much. And I seriously hope this video ages like sour milk, to the point where we can laugh at the fact that this was ever even a take to begin with. But we've got to address the elephant in the room. Trevor Lawrence might be the least clutch quarterback I've ever seen in my life. Now, before I go any further, I have to preface this by saying that I still absolutely love the guy, and I'm happy that he's Jacksonville's quarterback. Once it became very apparent a month into the 2020 season that the Jaguars were going to stink, and that Gardner Minshew, for as lovable as he was not the franchise guy we all hoped he would be, I was fully on board with losing as many games as possible to get the number 1 pick and to get Trevor Lawrence. I jumped for joy when the Jets beat the Rams in Week 15, and the Jaguars were now officially in the driver's seat for Lawrence. He was the greatest college quarterback I'd seen from a pro perspective since Andrew Luck. The hype was completely real and justified. And so far, for the most part, I've been incredibly impressed with Lawrence. He's the franchise quarterback of the Jaguars. He's carried himself the right way. He's made significant improvements from year 1 to year 2, and he looks extremely comfortable in this offense, making plays that, quite frankly, I never seen a Jags quarterback make before. I have no qualms whatsoever with Lawrence as the franchise guy, and from that perspective, I'm not even the slightest bit worried about him. I became a fan of the Jaguars in 2005, and with the exception of David Garrard in 2007, this is by far the most comfortable I've ever been at the quarterback position, where I'm not worrying and sweating bullets and clenching my teeth every time the offense steps onto the field. So let's get that out of the way. Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. I love that he's in Jacksonville, and if his improvement with an actual coaching staff is any indication, he's only going to continue to get better, especially since he's only 22 years old. Having said all of that, the man is not even the slightest bit clutch, to the point where we have enough of a sample size where it's time to be genuinely concerned if he has that it factor to close out games. Because you know the feeling that you get when you watch Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Allen, you give them the ball late, and you know it's probably not going to end well for you? Yeah, it's the exact opposite with Trevor Lawrence. I don't want to say that winning games as a college quarterback is a bad thing, because obviously, that's not the case. You want guys that can win games. It feels downright silly and stupid to knock a guy down a peg because he won too much. But it was interesting in college just how he won those games. Lawrence played 40 games in college, and in those games with the Clemson Tigers, he went 38-2. However, in none of those wins did he have the ball in his hands late in the fourth quarter, needing a touchdown to tie or win the game. Most of these games were blowouts, or if they were one-possession games, it was because Clemson had the lead in the fourth quarter, and they either just needed their defense to make a stop, or they needed to run out the clock. The closest thing was at the 2019 Fiesta Bowl, when Lawrence led the game-winning touchdown drive after getting the ball with 3 minutes left. However, Clemson was only down by 2, trailing 23-21, so they only needed a field goal there. There was not one situation in college where it was late in the game, and Lawrence had to go to the end zone or bust, because his team was down by 4 to 8 points. So as much as everyone loved Lawrence coming out of college, and rightfully so, when you consider his demeanor, his mechanics, his footwork, his accuracy, his mobility, and literally everything about the man, his ability to perform down the stretch in clutch, touchdown-needing situations was always going to be a question mark, simply because we had never seen him do that before. The good news is that in the NFL, unsurprisingly, he's had those opportunities come his way. The bad news is that he's been absolutely terrible in those situations. I guess the catalyst for this video was what happened on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. For those who didn't watch the game, which was held in maybe the worst sustained weather conditions for any Jaguars game ever, considering the fact that the Monsoon Bowl against the Carolina Panthers in 2011 was only in those conditions for a few minutes, here's a brief recap of the situation. The Eagles are leading at 29-21. and they're faced with 4th and 3 at the 21-yard line of the Jaguars. I guess when you combine the weather and the fact that Jake Elliott got injured earlier in the game, though he was able to kick a field goal in the 4th quarter, instead of kicking the field goal to make it an 11-point game and put it completely out of reach, the Eagles decide to go for it. And when they go for it, Jalen Hurts' pass falls incomplete after some nice defense by Tyson Campbell. Just like that, the Jaguars, somewhat unexpectedly, have new life in them. With 1:54 left, the Jags need to go 79 yards to reach the end zone and potentially tie the game. It's up to Trevor Lawrence, who's definitely had a rough day, to make this happen. And on the very first play of the sequence, yep, he fumbled and lost the ball. And I'm not sure a single Jags fan was surprised by the news. Just as we could start celebrating the fact that we had new life and might have had a chance to erase this 15-point deficit thanks to the Eagles going for it on 4th instead of icing it with the field goal, the game was over. And that game really got me to thinking. Trevor Lawrence absolutely stinks in clutch situations. In total, throughout his time with the Jaguars, there have been 5 instances of the Jaguars being down by 1 possession with 2 minutes left, needing a touchdown or a field goal to either tie the game or win the game. And all 5 times, not only did the Jaguars fail to do that, but most of the time, it wasn't even close, and was because of something that Trevor Lawrence did that he definitely should not have done. So with that, let's break down each of these situations and look at just how bad Trevor has been in the clutch. Because I'll tell you what, it's not pretty. Our first instance comes on November 14th, 2021, in Week 10 of last season against the Indianapolis Colts. Here, the Jaguars were down by 6, and got the ball back after a Michael Badgley field goal. Following the kickoff, the Jaguars needed to go 75 yards to score a touchdown and win the game. And sure enough, the drive ends with Trevor taking a sack and losing the football, which ends the game. 2 weeks later, on November 28th, the Jaguars are playing the Falcons, and they trail by 7 points. They have the ball at their own 18-yard line, needing to go 82 yards to tie the game up with a touchdown. What followed was a turnover on downs where on the drive, Trevor went 2 for 7 with 11 yards passing, including 4 straight incompletions to end the drive, some of which were not even close to the intended target on the play. At the end of the 2021 season, in Week 16 against the New York Jets, we had what was by far the closest that Trevor ever came to completing one of these drives. Down by 5 points with 1:47 left, the Jags had to go 75 yards in order to win the game. The good news was that with 32 seconds left, Trevor was able to get it all the way down to the 5-yard line. The bad news was that once he got into the red zone, it's like he forgot how to play the position, as he threw 2 incomplete passes plus a spike, with one of them not even being remotely close to his target, turning the ball over on downs. He did complete a pass to get the Jaguars down to the 1-yard line, but come on. This was unbelievably lucky that it did not get intercepted, as it literally went off of CJ Mosley's hands. Keep that play in the back of your mind, because this is one of those instances where it is absolutely fair, considering the circumstances, to play the should've, would've, could've game. Now we have the game against Washington that took place earlier this year in Week 1. The Jaguars get the ball at the Commanders' 25-yard line, and down 28-22, needing to go 75 yards to win the game with a touchdown. Instead, the drive ends with Trevor Lawrence throwing up an absolute hero ball prayer for no reason on 3rd down that easily gets picked off. On this drive, Trevor went just 2 for 4 with 12 yards passing and that interception. And then, we had the aforementioned Philly game. You all know how that one went. Those 5 games, the 2020 games against Indy, Atlanta, and New York, and the 2021 games against Washington and Philly, are the only 5 times that Trevor has ever gotten the ball for the Jaguars with 2 minutes left in the 4th quarter and trailing by 1 possession, with the game completely resting on his shoulders. And all 5 times, not only has he failed to rise to the occasion, but he has failed spectacularly. Trevor's stats across those 5 games in those situations are as follows. He's 13 for 24, completing just over 54% of his passes. Amazingly enough, of those 13 completions, only 1 of them went for a gain of double-digit yards. Only 1 time in those 5 games, with the game on the line and needing to go down the field, has Trevor successfully completed a pass for 10 yards or more. He can hit the checkdowns that the defense gives him and is fine giving them because it bleeds the clock and doesn't really go anywhere. But anything else, even if it's open, and he can't hit it. Besides the fact that none of those drives ended with points, 3 of them ended with Trevor turning the ball over. And it really should have been 4, because CJ Mosley just flat out dropped an interception that the average person watching this video would have been able to make. His passer rating in these situations, when you take everything into account, is a mere 46.9. That is abysmal. For some perspective on how bad a 46.9 is, I think we can all agree that Mitch Trubisky has been terrible for the Steelers this season, and it's about time that the Steelers benched him for Kenny Pickett. His passer rating this season is so bad that it's the second worst total in the league amongst all qualified quarterbacks. His passer rating is 73.7. And remember, that 46.9 is with how everything played out. If we changed the CJ Mosley dropped interception into an actual interception like it should have been, and not one of the flukiest completions in Jags history, that passer rating drops to 27.4, which is worse than if you did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. I cannot believe I have to say that line when talking about Trevor. But when the game is on the line, his passer rating where he throws it straight to the linebacker and they don't have butterfingers is significantly less than 39.6. A 5-game sample size, a turnover 3 times that should have been 4, and a passer rating that really should be 27.4. Remember how bad rookie Ryan Leaf was, where he threw 2 touchdowns and 15 interceptions all season? His passer rating that season was 12 points higher than what Trevor should actually be in the final 2 minutes of a 1-possession game. Either way, whether you want to calculate it as a 46.9 because you hate playing the hypothetical scenario game, or whether you want to calculate it as a 27.4, it's still really, and I truly mean it, really bad. To the point where there has to be genuine concern about just how clutch Trevor Lawrence actually is. And again, I have to say this. I absolutely love Trevor. Trust me, I know what bad quarterback play looks like. I've watched it my whole life with this team. I sat through 2.5 years of Blaine Gabbert, an eternity of Chad Henne, 4 games of Nick Foles that were 4 games too many, half a season of Cody Kessler for some reason, a season with a revolving door involving Mike Lennon and Jake Luton, and things were so bad that we actually tried to convince ourselves that Blake Bortles was a legitimate franchise quarterback, even though, looking back on it, I really don't know what we were thinking. There must have been something in the water. Trevor is the guy, and he's only going to get better. But it is absolutely fair, seeing as he's had 5 tries and has failed miserably all 5 times, especially since he didn't really have to do this in college, to question whether or not he has the clutch gene. Because even if Trevor Lawrence might scare you as the opposing defense for the first 58 minutes, if it's close, he's sure as heck not scaring you for the final 2 minutes. Just like most teams in the NFL, the Jaguars will go as far as their quarterback can take them. And for the sake of myself and Jags fans everywhere, if Trevor's going to take this team to the promised land after some absolutely dark days, then plain and simple, he'll have to learn how to close out games. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.